going to get started for the afternoon session. Thank you all for staying here. It means a lot to all of us that you're all still kind of hanging in. Hopefully you hang in for the whole day. If not, we won't take it personally. Before we get started, I just want to point out a couple of things. I appreciate a couple of things that the speakers said, but there's 4 of us that really, 5 of us that really worked really hard to put this thing together with a lot of God's help. So Brad and Chris and Adrian, and Jason, who are not, I don't think any of them are in here right now. So, well, the speakers thanked them too. They did a lot of work. There wouldn't be any of this without all of us. So, and sometimes I just get lost here, just trying to just be here. I do want to thank Steve for an incredible talk on step 2. And also I want to thank Chad for step 3. And I guess we are going to wait till the next talk to pass baskets because, again, no one's here. We'll do that next talk. So I guess before we get started, let's just try to get quiet again and get still. And if everybody's all right, we'll just say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. All right, and I've asked a friend to come up and read something before we get started.
Good afternoon, Mike, alcoholic.
Hey, Mike.
Step 4 and 5. If we have been thorough about our personal inventory, we have written down a lot. We have listed and analyzed our resentments. We have begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. We have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies. But we look on them as sick people. We have listed the people we've hurt by our conduct and are willing to straighten out the past if we can. In this book, you read again and again that faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from Him. If you have already made a decision and an inventory of your grosser handicaps, you have made a good beginning. That beginning, so you have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself. Chapter 5, How It Works, pages 70 and 71. Thanks for letting me read. Oh, do I? Oh, I got one more. I like to be center of attention. Ashley. When we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. We have written inventory and we prepare for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we are about to do and why we have to do it. He should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence. Chapter 6 into action, page 75. Now, thank you for letting me read.
All right, and with that, our speaker on steps 4 and 5 will be Julie A. from Ocean Grove, New Jersey.
Whoa. I already screwed up. Hey everyone, I'm Julie. I'm an alcoholic. I was worried about this. Thank you.
Is that good?
Yes. Perfect. Okay. Hi. Let's see where to start. I've been coaching myself all day. Like, you're around people today. You got to act right. You got to remember the things to say in the beginning and all that. So my sobriety date is August 18th, 2012. My home group is Designed for Living in Neptune, New Jersey. Thank you, Teddy, for asking me to do this. Thank you for, I don't know if any of the folks you mentioned are back in here, but for everyone that helped with this event, thank you. There's a lot that goes into these. I loved those that already spoke. You guys did such an incredible job, and I was, when I was able to be present and listen, and I was into it and just on the edge of my seat, and you guys killed it. And then when I was thinking about my talk, I'm like, can one of these guys just blow it? Like it's just like, and that's so self-centered. Like it just gives, that's the kind of mind, like that's the self-centeredness. And that's just on a daily basis, like the surface level, self-centeredness that I touch, that I'm trying to observe and work through on a daily basis. So my job today is to talk about 4 and 5. I'm going to do, those two somewhat interchangeably. I want to talk about my experience with drinking a little bit, and then talk about a little tale of untreated alcoholism, because there's a lot of people in this room that are fairly new, getting sober, getting off alcohol, and then there's some people in here, and I know, because I was one of them for a while, that are dying from untreated alcoholism, and that means stone cold sober, years removed from a drink or a substance, and you're miserable, and that was my story. That's a spell I'm coming off of. I've got 11 years of sobriety. Took me 7 years of trying to claw my way into these rooms. And really it was simple. I was trying to get sober and do it middle of the road. I was just unwilling to follow all the suggestions, and unable to, and powerless, and didn't understand what I was suffering from, and things kept getting worse. And I finally, and I was in and out, and I was the drunk in the meetings, drunk, and, stringing along different sponsors, telling half-truths, and it's dramatic, throwing my stuff away, alcohol and whatever else, and making grand, proclamations of sobriety, and just get loaded and in and out, and very self-seeking, and did that for about 7 years, and then found my way into a treatment center that it was Mark Houston Recovery Center, and I was introduced to what my problem was. I was introduced to what alcoholism really is, which was explained in step 1. And we come in here and we say, we think it's about an alcohol problem, but at this point I find out I don't have an alcohol problem. If I have an alcohol problem, the solution is simple. Just go, any one of the, however many times I detox would have done the trick. Just detox, dry up, and go on your way. However, when I came in, I knew that I had more than an alcohol problem. What I really thought was that I was a miserable human being with depression and other things, and what I added to that was a really bad alcohol problem. So I just thought I was a person that now had 2 problems. And what was going to happen was that I was going to have to subtract the alcohol problem, because it was a low bottom drunk, near death many times, just bad drunk. And I was seeing that if it didn't take me out, that I was going to, that one was one way or the other going to be subtracted, right? Like the wall was closing in, and things were closing in, and then I thought I'd just revert back to the very miserable person I was before I found the alcohol, before I found the solution. So those were kind of my calculations. And so I came in and worked these steps, and nobody was more shocked than me when they worked. I mean, nobody. I was just absolutely blown away. I was kind of forced into a treatment center. I'm from here. I went to treatment in Austin, Texas, which is where I met Chad. How about Chad's little talk before, huh? Yeah. Calling me out. A little inventory later on that guy. We talk about our stuff from the podium. That's all I have to offer. I'm an unwell person. That's the truth. I'm an unwell person for any amount of time separated from this work. I get very unwell, and I have plenty of experience in sobriety. Being separated from this work and trying to substitute this work with other things. An example of them is, the meditation retreat Chad mentioned we went to. You'd think I would have been, 35 hours in meditation, and I come home, 2 weeks later, and I'm takes 2 weeks to become absolutely insane again, right? Like, I've tried to, I've been to shamans. I'm a spiritual mystic. That's one of my stage characters that I'm going to talk about a little bit later when we get into when I get into the inventory process. I'm a spiritual mystic. I do these meditations to, clear my chakras and, clear the throat chakra and send the energy. And I'll sit and do that for 2 hours. And then it's like I come out and it's like, but you're still lying. So you can't clear your throat. You're telling lies. You're living in self-delusion. You're not putting pen to paper anymore. So you can blast all the ethereal energy in the world that you want in your throat chakra. But we have a simple program here that works to get us unblocked. And that's what this step is about. The fourth and fifth step are about only one thing, and that's getting unblocked. I have to, because now my anesthesia is gone, the alcohol is gone, the substances are gone, and my pain is great. It is tremendous. I'm worse. I'm not better. I hate myself. The self-centeredness that Chad described is closing in on me everywhere. I go through life in a bubble, somehow just completely alone. That's what that self-centeredness means to me. I'm in a bubble that separates you from me, and I can't, and I'm convinced that I need to manage and control and claw my way through it so I could be okay. And whoever gets hurt in that process is kind of just the way it is, because I got to move you out of the way, and I can't move me out of the way, and it's really bad. And that's this, this self-centeredness problem that I'm dealing with. So I come in and I, like I said, have a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. And we talk about the pink cloud, like when you first get sober, there's a spiritual awakening, some call it the pink cloud. And I think what that is like there's this stripping away, there's some genuine humility. Like I forget who I think I am. I'm humble. I've accepted grace into my life. I've made conscious contact with this power greater than myself, and I came in very agnostic too, so that was also, a big shock. And then what happens is my ego reconstructs itself at an astonishing pace. This is what always happens. And there's a good definition of ego that I like by Eckhart Tolle. Chad and I have been talking about how you say his last name for years. We don't know. It's one or the other. But it's ego is a mind-made false sense of self. So I get this thing, and then very quickly I start to reconstruct this false sense of self, and I do that a number of ways, and one of them is through this cast of characters that I set in my life, these stage characters. This is one of the things we uncover in the inventory, and this is the work to be able to see my false senses of self. Is one of the things I need to continue to do throughout this process to stay unblocked. I have to get unblocked from self. Self-will is the problem. This is how step 3 winds up working retroactively, so to speak. I can't make a third step decision. Step 3 means nothing to me until I go through the inventory. It's interesting information, but it doesn't mean much else until I go through this inventory process, because I can't think my way out of my self-centeredness any more than I could think my way out of the drink. So what I learned in step 1 is I'm powerless. I am powerless. Now I need power. And they talk about alcohol until, page, 45 in the book, right? Then they say lack of power is your dilemma. And they start talking about your moral and philosophical convictions. And you're not going to be able to live up to any of them unless you have this power, etc. And then they start talking about my selfishness. I find out that I've got this thing that's driving the root of my troubles, and that's, the selfishness. So I get into this inventory process, and I get unblocked. I search. The big book talks about searching out the flaws in our makeup, which had caused our failure. We're way beyond alcohol at this point. So I do that in this process, and that was the big turning point for me. And I had some women that I'm indebted to forever who sat with me, and I didn't realize this at the time, but they were modeling to me from day one on how to listen to inventory. And I've listened to, I don't even know how many inventories, a lot. And they modeled to me from day one, and their message was clear. It's that this is a life and death errand. Like this is, we don't do it like, we're not going to do the fifth step while we're both driving in the car down the highway. Like this is a life and death errand, which I don't know about you guys, but to me that means like it needs a lot of our attention, right? I need to pay attention as if it were such. And they cared more about my life than my feelings, So they were able to hold the mirror up and care more about my life and my feelings. So I had an opportunity to have this pretty radical shift in perspective and get well. So the first 6 years of my sobriety, I mean, really, I just can't even believe that I'm sober. I'm so grateful, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I got the message real early, real clear, which was, if you want to keep this, you carry the message. It's the only way. That's how we keep it. There's no other way. We do our own work so we can stay unblocked, and then this becomes about someone else. And that worked great, and that's what I did. I helped a lot of people. My life got really good. My life got really big. I got a career. I got, you know, all kinds of gifts. I got a relationship. I got some self-respect. You know, I got these things. And then, at about 6 years sober, 6-7 year mark, and this had been creeping in, right? But I got the idea that I was one of my other stage characters is victim, forever the victim. The original victim story is I'm a victim of my father. We'll talk about that later. But I'm the victim, and that will kind of creep into my life in any area. So this idea became really loud, and I wasn't, you know, I was getting a little tired of putting pen to paper about it because I wasn't getting the relief that I was. I had started to continue to do the inventory process for relief. Instead of freedom, I wanted to get these feelings off me. So I was writing stuff down, and things still weren't going my way, you know? And so slowly but surely, you know, I started taking matters back into my own hands. And what it was I felt like I was getting a raw deal in life. There was a thing or two that I wanted that I didn't have. One big thing, which I still don't have, which is absolute proof that self-will does not get you what you need. And that was children. I wanted a child. And there's a couple, you know, I won't get into the whole story, but there's a couple reasons that that wasn't working out. So I set on a course to, you know, I'm the kind of person, you know, I'm hypnotized by my own voice, right? So this voice is just you know, I got these women sit with me, tell me, you know, if it doesn't work out, like, you don't need it, so you could be happy. I'm like, well, that's easy. You have them, though. So it's easy for you to say, so you can have them, but I'm the one that has to be the martyr of, oh, okay, I'll just remember that I could be happy and free if I don't have what I want, you know? Like, and that's how the voice talks to me, right? That's how the voice is just like, you're a victim, and you know, these people, and it's like, so let's find another solution for this problem. It doesn't say that consciously, right? It doesn't, but the next thing you know, I'm on a course of you know, it starts with like one lie. You know, being honest was important to me in sobriety. Like that was a big deal. It was kind of cool. It's like it was the last thing that ever occurred to me for many years until I got sober. And then you get sober and you realize you could just be honest. It kind of solves every problem. Really, it does. It's scary. It takes courage, but you can actually be honest. And I stopped doing that. You know, and this stuff kind of started falling off, and I stopped taking regular inventory. See, I was taught that, you know, we write our inventory, we do our first big fifth step, and then we stay current on inventory. And I'm the kind of person that I'm delusional, right? And I think I'm doing something that I used to be doing when I'm not doing it anymore. So I think it's still working. But what's actually happening is it's just a memory of the past. And another example of this would be relatively recently, I was having a lot of back and neck pain. And I was trying different acupuncture. I was trying all kinds of different things. And so alongside that, I've been a long time practitioner of yoga, you know, because I'm a mystic. And I used to teach yoga. I have almost 2 decades of history with yoga. And what I was primarily doing in my life at the time, I guess a few months ago, was lifting weights. That's how I was exercising, and I was real serious about my form. I was making sure I did everything right. Chad was helping me, you know, so I wouldn't get hurt. But it still hurt. My back still hurt, and I was like, man, I don't. Do I have some sort of injury? What's this about? And but if you told me, you know, I was like, well, I practice yoga, so it's not like my muscles are, you know, I do yoga. So I wind up going, you know, unrelated to this yoga studio, mostly to spend time with my sister. We started going to this yoga studio together. I started practicing about 3 to 5 times a week. And about 3-4 weeks in, my back and neck pain is almost gone. And I'm stunned because I would have told you, and I don't even know that I thought yoga was this. In this case, it happens to be, But I would, if you would have asked me, I would have said I practice a lot of yoga. I do, don't you know who I am? I got trained to teach yoga 15 years ago. I practice in the living room like once a month for 30 minutes. But the truth was I wasn't practicing yoga anymore. And when I was, I got the result. But I didn't know that. I was living on, a past memory of something that I was doing that was helpful for me at the time. And the same thing goes with this work. So there's, some time goes between me and the last inventory, and then I'm stacking up my resentments. The big book talks about resentment is the number one offender. It kills more alcoholics than anything else. That's serious business. If I'm holding on to one resentment, I'm blocked from you. That's how it seems to work. And I can't be blocked from you, or I'm blocked from God. So I can't get away with it, So basically I burned my life down in self-will over the next 3 years. I didn't relapse. Many do with my behavior. Many have much many don't get away with anywhere near what I guess I got away with. I didn't really get away with anything. I hurt a lot of people. Maybe I would have hurt less people if I was medicated, right? But I was in untreated alcoholism. See, my alcoholism demands to be treated. It demands to be treated, and it doesn't care. It's going to take hold of anything, and it's going to make it about untreated alcoholism. So I had this idea, the AA thing, it's great, and I'm still a member of AA, but I want life things now. And it's kind of stupid to say I'll make a third step decision and see if that's what's going to bring me a child. Because adults go out and have children. And I got to go figure this out now because it's not happening for me. God's not giving it to me. Don't you see that this is not about an untreated alcoholism thing? This is about something that I want. And don't I deserve that? And then I go into all of that, what I deserve, and all of that. And it sounds innocent enough, right? Like for a sane person who kind of knows how to be an adult in the first place and arrange their life to find a partner that wants kids and find, whatever people do that winds up, where life winds up working out well, is just, I don't do that. I don't have access to that. That's the truth. I do not. I have a lot of evidence to show that I don't. And so I launch out on this mission, and it just got really bad, and it culminates in I'm in basically two relationships. Chad's living in Austin. I'm here in Jersey. It's during COVID, I guess. I'm in a relationship with a woman. We've got appointments at a fertility clinic, both of us, and we're going to go and we're going to have babies. And she's barely sober, and I'm like, because there's nothing wrong with bringing babies into the world like that. As long as I get what I want. We'll get this figured out. As long as I get what I want, I'll clean it all up later. And really, it's Chad's fault because he wouldn't go along with my plan in the first place. So you asked for it. So everybody get out of my way. And nothing wrong with bringing babies into this world where one's barely sober and one's stark raving sober, right? And then it doesn't, it didn't go my way. It didn't go my way. And so he comes here and culminates in his earlier story about us being at the roundup, and I'm emailing my sponsors. It's just insane, and it's insane. And the truth of the matter is, without this work, I'm a liar and a cheat, and I'm dishonest to the core. I'm self-centered to the core, and more than anything else, I'm driven by fear. The big book talks about searching out the flaws that make up our failures, and the way we do those, we do 3 inventories: resentment, fear, and sex, or conduct inventory. What I find out about myself and fear is I'm driven by it. I am driven by fear. What am I afraid of? I mean, I could put some words to it, but I'm driven. It becomes my state of being. Fear is, we need fear. Fear is good. Fear gives us an indicator that, a bus is about to hit me and to get out of the way, or a tiger's coming at me, or to protect my young, which I don't have, but, all that. But what happens is, in this level of self-obsession, when you're walking around with this and you're so self-obsessed, you're crippled, and you don't have anesthesia for it anymore, and you're a dry drunk, and you're in self-obsession, you're constantly trying to figure out and manage your life, and then, the fear's on you all the time. And I'm in a low-level stress all the time. And I can't figure out how to get out of it. I'm just living in this fear, right? And then it's like it was when I was on alcohol and partying again, or if you could call it party, whatever it was, right? It was a solo party. But I feel like that again. I'm always looking over my shoulder. My heart rate's always a little elevated. I've always got a low-grade fever of anxiety and just, right, and this fear is just driving me. 100 forms: fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. The book talks about how we deal with fear. It talks about us being in the world to play the role he assigns, that God assigns. The roles I assign are bad. I hurt people. I don't really mean to. I'm not a sociopath. I'm not. But I hurt people. I hurt people. I hurt people. I've caused a lot of damage in sobriety. You know, and it's like one thing to come up here and say, "Oh, it's so crazy, untreated alcoholism," but it's bad. I'm a monster, and you know, I needed, and this is what drove me back into the work. So, fast forward to, I don't know. I always say 3 years, but now it might be time just marches on, you know. But a couple of years ago, I roll into a big book study in Neptune, New Jersey, and I'm a wreck, and I'm crying, and a woman comes up to me, and I'm just like, you know, and I'm going to the counselors, and I am a counselor, but that's my profession. I got all the knowledge, right? I know about the childhood trauma, I know about the daddy issue, I know about all of it, and I'm crawling in there, and I'm just crying to this woman, and she's like, "Well, why don't I take you through the work and we have a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps?" And I'm like, this has got to be some sort of nightmare. I can't believe I'm crawling in here. Like, did you hear what I just told you? I want a baby. No one will really have one with me. I can't figure out how to get it. I don't have what I want. If I had it, I'd probably be miserable anyway. I'm starting to realize that. I don't know the true from the false anymore, but I'm crazy. Help me. And she introduces this work again, and I'm like, but I already did this. That's old news. What else you got? This is it. This is what we got. And I'll tell you what, I worked these steps again. And when I became willing to be honest, which took a while, they worked again. And there's no meditation in the world to clear my throat chakra that could substitute for me being willing to be honest again and put pen to paper. I've done it all. Shamans, Native American ceremony. I mean, it's way down a spiritual, but that stuff is fantastic. I love it. I'll always do it. It's an accessory to this work. I go back to a liar and a cheat and an extremely selfish and self-centered individual who is so driven by fear. Right? And when I'm in fear, I'm in survival mode. I can't see. I got a pair of goggles, and they can only see, like, you know, like my sister. I have two sisters. One of them has 3 kids. They're all under 5. She's in survival mode. I mean, she's so self-centered. You know, I know she can't help anyone else. She's drowning. Her husband works 7 days. She's absolutely drowning because she's in fear all the time, and she's self-centered. She's got these little, you know, maniacs, and she. That's what fear does to us, right? So I need this God, I need this power. So we go back to this. So I can't have this power unless I get unblocked, so I have to search out the flaws in my makeup. And one of the things I find out is that I have, all right, so when we do the first inventory, there's a lot of things are important in the inventory process. Your secrets will keep you sick, right? Your secrets are, you got to tell your whole life story. They talk about in the 5th step. Some of us try to avoid this humbling method, and you know, we're gonna drink if we do that. So we tell our secrets, especially when we're first coming in. We've all done the weird stuff, right? Like, I've heard it. There's nothing original out there. Someone said that earlier. Nothing, right? So we tell our secret. We do that part, and then we get a shift in perspective around some things, and then we see that, you know, in that second column in the inventory was maybe oftentimes a lie, and the third and fourth column, you know, disproves the second column in the inventory, which I'll get into. So we do that. And then this other thing I see is back to this, you know, ego, this mind-made false sense of self, is these stage characters. The Big Book talks about it in the 5th step. They talk about the alcoholic leads a double life. To the world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he wants his fellows to see. And I have a number of those. And the funny thing about them is they clash with each other sometimes. So one of them I told you about is the spiritual mystic, right? I'm a mystic. I even, some days I'm like, I think I'm actually like psychic, But you would think if I were psychic that I would at least know when I should write my own inventory. Like, it's like, what does that really do for me? Nothing. And the spiritual mystic is like not of this world. She's like kind of above all this, because this is just, it's okay, but it's not really, I'm out there. I'm kind of, I'm elevated somehow. And, but it's funny because that spiritual mystic, when is sitting in here and watching these guys absolutely kill it in their talks and is feeling terrified to come up here and speak and going, why couldn't one of them blow it so I could do better talk? Where's the spiritual mystic then, right? Who's that stage character? Another one is a sober, strong woman of AA. There's many important components of that. Sober, strong, and woman. Those all mean something to me, right? Strong means you're the kind of woman that goes in a room full of men and shares. That's what you do. No matter what. That's what you do. Woman. This one's a tough one. I have some conflict with this stage character. See, in the third column, we talk about our person. We talk about a number of areas of self, and we talk about sex relations. We look at what we think real men and real women should do. Well, I told you I wanted kids, and I don't have any, right? So to me, real women have kids. Real women birth people. They grow the human, and they birth the human. That's what a real woman is, and especially real women in AA. The women that come in here with their story, the ones that actually, it's like it's a constant feeling of inadequacy, and this is something that I've dealt with, I continue to deal with, but to put it in context of how it was, at least at one point in the not too distant past, it's like the voice would just say, you think you're too busy to go to another meeting? So that one, what about the ones that go when they have kids? So you can be busy telling everyone else to put their recovery first, but they're the ones that have the kids at home, and it just, so not having that, I got to figure out how do I navigate the world as a sober, strong woman in AA without any kids, right? Then I've got the aunt. I got the aunt stage character. The aunt stage character is very important because the aunt stage character makes up for the mom stage character a little bit. I don't know if you guys didn't know this about me. I'm a super aunt. I have 5 nieces and nephews. They're all 5 and under. I love them. And I kind of sort of fantasize about myself as like a co-parent. And that's not what I am. I'm an aunt who likes to try to tell their sisters how to parent when I don't even have kids. Now, am I involved in these kids' lives? Yes, I'm obsessed with these. I each of their interests. My 3-year-old nephew, he's got 1 million triceratops. Triceratops is his favorite dinosaur. I got some triceratops in my car. I love these kids. I'm so into it. There's nothing wrong with these things. There's nothing wrong with being an aunt, with being a sober, strong woman, with being a spiritual mystic. Those things are all important. What happens is they become my sense of self. And that's what I see in the inventory process. And what happens is when they're who I am, I got a big problem if things aren't working out. And, these can just kind of pop in when we're here with me and Chad and Chris and Marissa came with us today, and Chris and Marissa are our neighbors. They live right across the way. We love them. And we came up here, and me and Chad and Chris go to meetings together a lot. And we'll get in my car. And Chad is Chris's sponsor, and I'll say, oh, Chris, you sit in the front. I'll sit in the back, because you should sit up there with your sponsor. And, the car seat's back here, because I'm an aunt with the car seat. Now, there's 3 seats. If anybody's ever had a car seat in their back seat, it takes up 1 seat, right? But so there's 2 other seats. Like, that's not why, but this is how I got to parade as I'm the aunt. It's, the truth is, I don't want him to sit in the back seat because it's a mess, and I'm embarrassed. My car is a mess. But it's because I'm an aunt that has a car seat. It's just ridiculous, right? These characters, like the way they find a way to, parade themselves. I got the counselor stage character. I'm that now. And that really clashes with the AA one too. So I got these characters, I got all these voices. It's a cast of characters, and they're all trying to make up for different insecurities and inadequacies I have, and they're all trying to have their voice. And so I get a chance to see that in the inventory process. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the columns of the inventory, and I brought a piece of inventory that I wrote a few years ago. that I'm going to read a little bit of just to demonstrate it. It's hard to see it. Chad suggested I rewrite it last night just so it could be a little neater. And I was like, no, I cannot alter the original document. It's like vintage inventory by Juliet from 2014. It's ridiculous. Now I can't see it. I think I'm so special. But we do this inventory, and I'm going to walk us through the resentment. So column 1, who am I? Resentful at people, institutions, principles. In this case, I've got Jamie. I did change the name. This is back when I was living in Austin. Column 2, why am I resentful? So I write a few. This is not a chance for my, ego to pontificate. And this is the way I was taught. Everybody, if you're in here and you're writing inventory, do it how your sponsor lined you out. Not for me, but I'm going to walk you through a way of inventory I was taught. So I try to write some bullet points about why I'm resentful. Jamie got a raise in a better position at work, making more than me when she learned a lot of what she knows from me. We were recovery managers. I was working in treatment years ago. So my perception of this is she learned everything she knows about recovery from me, and now she's ahead of the game. How's that work, right? She is younger than me, and I should be further along. So when you write that second column, you really want to look and say, is the second column, and again, you don't really need to do this, the fourth column is going to disprove the second column, but you look, it's like, is the second column even true, right? In this case, I guess, this piece of inventory isn't a real extreme example of that, but there's a couple things. She's younger than me. This girl is 3 years younger than me, right? 3 years younger is a lot like being the same age, right? Like, it's one thing, like if you're a freshman in high school and a senior in high school, that's one thing. But when you're 29 and 32, it's like, it's not so, but this is how, So then I write some things, so then I write down, we've got these areas of self-esteem. I find that self-esteem is a lot about conceit, whether it's the elevated esteem or the low, whether I think that I'm the greatest one in this room or the worst one in this room, both of those are a form of conceit. My constant victimhood is a form of my own conceit and self-obsession. So however I write this one, I see this, right? I am a good employee, which was not true. I am worth it. Then we get to pride. No one should. Others should. My pride operates in a way where it thinks it's protecting me, but it's killing me. It's protecting me from you, but what it's actually doing is killing me by keeping me separate from you. No one should be younger than me and get a raise, blah, blah, blah. My ambition. My ambition is my expectations, really. My ambition is what I wanted to happen here. So these are now my expectations which guide my life, which are usually, they're not accurate, right? They're not usually based on reality. If I'm to the point where I'm writing an inventory. So I examine my ambition, and this is again this is called the expanded third column of inventory. I wanted to continue working here but make more money. I wanted it not to change. So I'm playing God because I'm so afraid of change. Because if things stay the same, then I think I'm mastered. If I can keep things the same, then I'm mastered. I figured it out and I've got control over it, right? But if you change up the game on me in whatever way, we've got change, I feel like I lost control over it, right? So now I have a problem. Security. I need more money to be okay. I need validation and compensation to be okay. I look at my security needs, right? I have very delicate, my security is very fragile, right? I'll call a lot of wants needs, right? I might want more money. Everybody wants more money. Everybody in this room, I guarantee, might want more money, right? But I need it to be okay. And so I get a chance to look at where my security continues to drive me in fear. Then I talk about personal relations, in this case, friends. Friends don't act superior. Friends don't ignore me. I'm certain I set the ball rolling in this case, and she responded, But in my mind, she started treating me differently when she got this position. I look at real women. Real women don't gossip and then act superior. What I've found over the many years of writing inventory is that what I write under the real woman column is almost always something I do or have done. Almost always. That one more than anyone. And pocketbook, no one should make more money than me and be younger than me. All that. So I write that, and then we get to the realization. And in this, I'm gonna talk about the realization a little more after this, about a different inventory. But in this case, I wrote, no one is forcing me to stay where I'm at. She got the raise in position because she's been there longer. I'm disorganized. I haven't made my calendar, and I act like I'm my own boss. Like I don't deserve the position. I'm not. So I look at some other things here. I look at my selfishness. I'm arrogant. I look at my arrogance. I look at my self-seeking, complaining, asking for a raise, threatening to leave, playing the victim. Now, I can't remember real clearly. I wrote this a few years ago, but I guarantee I did those things in a very subtle way, right? I'm sure I had a very artful way, because I'm a manipulator, right? I'm sure I knew right when to lay down the complaints and kind of pitch my story to the right people, and however that behavior was subtle, which can sometimes make it even trickier to nail, right? Then I look at my dishonesty, that I'm a victim. They've always been upfront with me. This job was very upfront with me, right? The dishonesty, there's a number of ways I can live in dishonesty. I can lie, right? I can lie directly. I can lie by omission. I can leave details out, right? Which is what I do in my inventory from the start. In the second column, I'm lying by omission. I'm telling a dumb story about this girl got pit. I'm not telling what actually happened here until I keep writing. And then self-delusion. I live in a level of self-delusion that keeps me sick, and that has different payoffs. And the fear, always being a loser, not being worth more, always struggling financially, never moving forward. Jamie being more recovered than me, reaching for the tools easier and quicker, living in spiritual principle. It's like if recovery is all I got, and I think you're ahead of me, I have a problem, because this is what I put a lot on, being this recovered woman. So I wanted to go back to the realization. I'm actually going to open my book here. So that's the 4-column resentment inventory. And we have, at least the way I was taught with that expanded third column, we have a format to do fear inventory. We have a format for conduct inventory. In the resentment inventory, they talk about the realization. We realize that others were perhaps spiritually sick just like us. It's a line that I get it, but I skim over it kind of. I'm more, over the years I got more on a mission I got real practice. I want to find my character defects. I already know himself. That's like old. I want to know how it's manifesting today. I need to get free of this. I got to bring this stuff to God. I can't get rid of my own, all this stuff. Kind of skim over the realization. So I had a big experience with this this last summer. Let's see how I'm doing on time. So my dad died in August, and we had a very difficult relationship, and he was a sick person, and I have written so many inventories on my father, so many, and it could never touch it. I can't really, but I took I did the work, I took the actions, and when I first got sober, I made amends to him because they told me to, and I didn't look him in the eye, and it was terrible, but I did it, checked it, and the truth is he mistreated me. I mean, we've been mistreated, right? The inventory process isn't about finding out that it's not about you were wrong about absolutely every misfortune you've, right? I mean, I was a kid, and there was some mistreatment, and in the last inventory I wrote on him, I was thinking of reading it, I decided not to, but in that I was looking at how I did that 4th column, and I'm writing about how I use that trauma card still today. It's always like, well, really, I mean, my behavior in this relationship is like this because Dad did this. You're telling me you could have shown up better? And then that victim story comes back in, and it's like, I have no way to know how much that affects me, but what I know is if I have enough awareness to manipulate it when it suits me, I might have a little bit more control over it than I think, let's say. So I found that out, and again, that was subtle, right? How that shows up, but I used that quite a bit. I blamed him for me not having any kids because I was too damaged to pull it off, and I blamed him for a whole lot of things. And I tried to get free of that resentment, and there was improvement. There was a lot of improvement in my behavior. I treated him a certain way that I can say I'm proud of at the end. Because my choice is to forgive. Like this inventory, I either see where I created this or I forgive. It doesn't, to me, if someone's worthy or not, I have to. I can't afford to not, right? And I want to. It feels good to forgive. So over the summer, he was sick, he was dying, and I knew that there was unfinished amends, and I was like, well, this is it. We had a few days left. This is actually it. I mean, yeah, I can make him when he's gone, but he's here. So I didn't plan it how it was going to happen, but it did. It happened, and I sat on the bed with him, and he was barely conscious, but he was there. He heard. He turned his head, and my father and I never had physical contact. We didn't look each other in the eye. We didn't, And I sat with him, and I put my hand on his heart, and that might sound regular if you have that kind of relationship with your dad, but that's not regular. That I felt violated anytime he was anywhere near me, right? And I put my hand over his heart, and I made amends to him and it was it was amazing. And I told my sisters about it. They're not in recovery. They're not alcoholics. And they came and made amends. I mean, not the way they don't work this program, but they came and cleaned some things up with him after hearing my story. And then my sister told my brother-in-law, and he made amends to my father. And then my father died. I was holding his hand. We were listening to our favorite song together, one of our favorite songs that we listened to our whole lives. And there's a couple other people in the room, my family. He took his last breath, and he died. And it was the most spiritual and terrible thing I've ever witnessed in my life. And I looked up at my mom across the bed and said, whatever that was, it was unbelievable. And before I had made that amends, a couple days before, there was family over, and we were standing in the kitchen, and my aunt was telling us, my dad's sister was telling a story about my dad and about his father and how badly my dad's father treated him, how badly my father was abused. And despite that, my dad would always say, my father was the best. My father was the best. And this was not new information. I knew that the trauma line ran. This was not new information. But that night, there was something about the way she said it. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was, all the inventories finally having this sort of effect and me being able to embody the spirit. Because we could do the mechanics of this work, but there's a spirit to this work, right? This was not pen to paper. This was a moment that I had. And she laid that out to me, and my eyes opened wide, and my heart cracked wide open. And I realized that he is perhaps spiritually sick just like me. And I have read that line a million times. And I never really knew what it meant until this moment. It went from head to heart. I know we say that, but that's what happened. And everything changed. And the last couple days with him, I got to make that amends. I went in there, I asked him if he wanted another dose of medication, because even though he was barely conscious, I kept asking because it seemed respectful before you push morphine, and he turned his head to me and said he already left. And I said, what? And he looked right at me and he said he already left right after the last of us made our amends. I don't know what he meant. Maybe he was hallucinating on medication. Maybe he was telling me he was already gone. He left his body, so he didn't need anything. I don't know. Those were his last words, and then he died. And I got a chance to have freedom. And you know what? My father and I now have the perfect relationship. We have the relationship I always wanted. It's perfect. I feel connected to him. The body and mind that he walked through this life in suffering from day one, terrible life, terrible, painful life he lived. He doesn't have to do that anymore. That's a celebration. He does not have to do that anymore. I'm happy for him. I feel his spirit. I feel connected to him. That's all I ever wanted, you know? In every inventory, it was the same thing. My ambition, I want to be connected to him. What I need to be connected to him. He wasn't capable of doing that in the human form. That was not in his capacity. It was in mine. It wasn't in his. It would be like telling him to go travel to the moon. He couldn't do it. You can't do it. It's not available to you. So he couldn't give me what he didn't have. He did the best he could. He's spiritually sick just like me. And when this hit me, everything changed. And the last few months have been, I've learned that grief and freedom can coexist, you know, and I grieve the loss of him physically and what we never will have now, which is a connection in the two human forms. But I have everything I ever wanted, and I feel nothing but love for him, nothing but love, and I'm free of this resentment. This resentment was killing me. This resentment drove all of it. I know it did. And so I'm grateful for that experience, and I'm grateful when I rolled back into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, an absolute mess, you know, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, crying to this woman, and she said, "We're going to do this thing again." I said, "Okay," you know, and I kept doing this when I had lost the faith, right? I kept doing it. I kept showing up for it, and kept waiting to see what would come if I kept on that path, and you know, I got a gift because of it. I got some freedom in God's time. So I think that's all I have today. Thanks for letting me share.